What on earth did we just witness? Because whatever unfolded in Philadelphia on the 4th of July, it barely resembled a football match. It certainly didn't feel like one. For 90 minutes, it was nothing but pushing, reckless tackles, off-the-ball hits, and wild challenges. French players were repeatedly brought down away from the play, elbows were crashing into bodies, and one of the tournament favorites kept getting slammed over and over, as if this were a parking lot fight instead of a FIFA World Cup round of 16 clash. It was genuinely painful to watch. Right in the center of all of it stood the referee, whistle in hand, watching everything happen without taking meaningful action. France won the match 1-0. They booked their place in the quarterfinals, but when people left the stadium, hardly anyone was talking about the result. The conversation centered on the complete disorder unfolding on the pitch, and the official whose job was to control it, but who never seemed willing to do so. His performance was so widely criticized that L'Équipe, the renowned French sports newspaper famous for its brutally honest player ratings, gave him one of its rarest scores, a shocking 1 out of 10. Their entire assessment was only 4 words long. He got almost everything wrong. On paper, this looked like a straightforward round of 16 matchup, a World Cup contender facing a determined Paraguayan side that had already eliminated Germany in a penalty shootout. What actually unfolded looked far less like elite international football and much more like a street fight that occasionally paused for a whistle. And the man holding that whistle spent the entire match looking less like the referee and more like someone who had accidentally wandered onto the field. His name is Ilgiz Tantashev. He represents Uzbekistan. He has been on FIFA's international refereeing list for 13 years, giving him more than enough experience to know exactly when a yellow card should be shown. Yet on Saturday, with the entire football world watching, he appeared to make a different decision. He simply chose not to use those cards against the team that kept committing the fouls. One statistic tells the story better than anything else. Paraguay committed around 12 or 13 fouls during the match. Several were heavy, dangerous challenges that made you cringe, while a number of off-the-ball incidents weren't even called as fouls. By the end of the full 90 minutes, Paraguay had received exactly 0 yellow cards. 0. Keep that number in mind, because this is where the situation goes from frustrating to almost unbelievable. France finished the match with 3 bookings. Manu Kone, Bradley Barcola, and Michael Olise were all shown yellow cards. So it wasn't as if Tantashev had forgotten his cards in the dressing room or left them in the tunnel. He clearly had them. He knew exactly where they were. He just seemed determined to use them only against the side that spent the night absorbing the punishment. Read that again, slowly. The team throwing elbows walked away without a single booking. The team taking those blows finished the match with 3 yellow cards. That isn't just poor refereeing. It's refereeing that completely lost its sense of balance. And let's go through exactly what was allowed to happen, because calling it dark arts almost makes it sound harmless. The reality deserves far more detail. Andres Cubas crashed straight into Adrien Rabiot with a challenge that had absolutely nothing to do with playing the ball. Nothing at all. Juan Jose Cáceres lashed out at both Achraf Hakimi and Kylian Mbappe after giving the ball away. A needless, frustrated kick made well after possession was lost. Matías Galarza planted his hand directly into Jules Koundé's face. Then, later in the match, he swung an arm at Mbappe as the French forward burst toward goal with a clear run ahead of him. And perhaps the most blatant moment of all came when Gabriel Avalos drove an elbow into Dayot Upamecano's midsection as Paraguay searched for an equalizer. An elbow to the body during a World Cup knockout match. And every single time, the referee reacted in exactly the same way. A quick glance, a wave to continue. Play on. Nothing else. Even Galarza's gamesmanship ended up paying off. When Michael Olise grabbed at his shirt, Galarza dramatically threw himself to the ground in an attempt to earn Olise a booking. It worked. The player who exaggerated the contact won the free kick. The player on the receiving end of the theatrics received the yellow card. Ilgiz Tantashev seemed to fall for those moments every time they came from one side, while refusing to see similar incidents at the other end. The television pundits didn't hold back either. Former England goalkeeper Joe Hart, speaking on the BBC, described Paraguay's behavior as an absolute disgrace. He even said that if those players had been on his own team, he would have been pulling them off the pitch himself. Micah Richards called the scenes embarrassing, adding that the frustrating part was Paraguay were actually a well-organized defensive side who didn't need to rely on those tactics. And former Germany midfielder Thomas Hitzelsperger went even further, saying that as a neutral observer, it was impossible to have any respect for what he had just watched. In his view, it went beyond being disgraceful and crossed into something even worse. When three former professionals, all watching the same game from the studio, are struggling to find strong enough words to describe what unfolded, it's a clear sign this wasn't simply a fiery contest. It was an ugly match from start to finish. Now, let's look at this properly for a moment, because this channel isn't about getting angry for the sake of it. There is a fair argument that deserves to be acknowledged. Paraguay didn't arrive to entertain the crowd. They came with a clear game plan. Defend deep, pack the penalty area with a back five, frustrate one of the tournament favorites, force the match into extra time and penalties, and try to recreate the upset they managed against Germany. For large parts of the game, that strategy came very close to succeeding. France needed more than 20 minutes to register their first shot. They didn't manage an effort on target until the 55th minute. Orlando Gil, Paraguay's goalkeeper and the hero of their victory over Germany, kept producing important saves throughout the match, including a superb double stop in stoppage time to deny Kylian Mbappé once again. From a defensive standpoint, Paraguay were compact, disciplined, and extremely difficult to break down. If they had relied solely on that organization, instead of mixing in the elbows and unnecessary fouls, they could have left the tournament with plenty of respect. That's the real disappointment for Paraguay. They were good enough defensively that they never needed to rely on those tactics in the first place. But even if you accept all of that, even if every team has the right to play its own style, it still doesn't excuse the referee's performance. The referee's job is simple: establish the standard early and enforce it consistently. Just compare it with the Canada versus Morocco match played earlier that same day. In that game, Michael Oliver handed out 6 yellow cards before halftime, made it clear where the line was, and as a result, the second half settled down considerably. That's what match control looks like. Ilgiz Tantashev did the complete opposite. He allowed the intensity to keep rising. He let foul after foul go unpunished. The players quickly realized there were no real consequences, and by the final whistle, the game had descended into confrontations, arguments from the benches, and Gustavo Velasquez attempting to challenge France's players after the match had ended. Games don't reach that point by accident. They get there because the referee allows them to. And there's another detail that makes the performance look even worse. The official statistics credited Paraguay with 13 fouls and France with 11. On paper, that almost suggests both teams were equally physical. Anyone who watched the match knows that wasn't the reality. Those numbers tell only part of the story, because countless Paraguayan fouls were never called in the first place. The small tactical trips, the off-the-ball shoves, and the unnoticed incidents never even made it onto the official count. The real difference between the two teams was much greater than just 2 fouls. And even among the fouls that Tantashev actually did call, only one side consistently faced disciplinary action. The statistics may have softened the criticism. The match itself exposed it completely, and the moment that ultimately decided the match says just as much about the referee's performance as everything that came before it. Early in the second half, substitute Desiré Doué burst forward, skipped past one defender, then another, before Diego Gomez brought him down inside the penalty area. It looked like a clear penalty. Ilgiz Tantashev disagreed. He let play continue. It wasn't until the VAR officials stepped in and called him over to the monitor that the decision was finally overturned. Even after he pointed to the spot, the drama wasn't over. Paraguay's players surrounded the referee to delay the restart, while Gustavo Velasquez deliberately scuffed up the penalty spot with his boot. Tantashev then had to repair the spot himself before Kylian Mbappé was finally able to take the kick. Mbappé calmly sent Orlando Gil the wrong way. France had the breakthrough. They reached the quarterfinals thanks to a penalty their on-field referee hadn't wanted to award in the first place. That goal was Mbappé's 7th of the tournament, drawing him level with Lionel Messi in the Golden Boot race. It also brought him to 19 goals in 19 World Cup appearances, leaving him just one behind Messi on the competition's all-time scoring list. In many ways, it perfectly summed up Mbappé's afternoon. From the opening whistle, he was kicked, shoved, elbowed, and constantly targeted. For the most part, he simply smiled and carried on. His post-match comment captured the mood perfectly. He joked that Paraguay seemed to think France would arrive wearing tuxedos, but France knew how to play a physical game as well. Meanwhile, Didier Deschamps chose not to publicly criticize anyone. He mentioned that insults had been coming from the Paraguayan bench, and admitted he instructed two of his biggest players to stay close to Mbappé during the closing stages, because he feared another reckless challenge was coming. As if that wasn't enough, the conditions themselves were brutal. Kickoff temperatures reached 101 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius, making it one of the hottest World Cup matches ever played, just below the all-time record of 109 degrees Fahrenheit, 43 degrees Celsius, set during Ireland versus Mexico in 1994. So while the referee was overlooking elbows and reckless challenges, the players were also battling extreme heat throughout the match. It's safe to say almost nobody involved enjoyed the afternoon. The only person who may have felt useful was the VAR official. France now move on to face Morocco in the quarterfinals. As for Ilgiz Tantashev, he wasn't so fortunate. FIFA suspended him almost immediately afterward, the closest the organization is ever likely to come to admitting that the officiating really was as poor as everyone believed. Have you ever seen a referee damage his own reputation this quickly? Let me know the worst refereeing decision you've ever seen in the comments, and stick around because the quarterfinals are only getting started.